HOA took her wheelchair thinking she was weak. They didn't know her mom was a judge ready to fight. The sun was just rising over a quiet suburban neighborhood. The lawns were green and perfect, but the air felt heavy with judgment. Sarah, a single mom, stood in her living room staring out the window. She was a federal judge, but no one here knew that. She kept it a secret to live a simple life with her daughter Lily. Today, though, her heart was breaking. Before watching full video, comment below from where you watching. Lily was 12 years old and couldn't walk on her own. She needed her wheelchair to move, to feel free. Yesterday that wheelchair was taken away, sold by the HOA, the people who made rules for the neighborhood. Now Lily sat on the floor trying to drag herself to the couch. Her small hands pushed hard, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying all night. Sarah knelt beside her, holding back her own tears. Lily's laughter used to fill this house, Sarah thought. Now it's just her sobs. That wheelchair wasn't just metal, it was her wings. She remembered how Lily would roll down the driveway, smiling wide, the wind in her hair. That freedom was gone now, and Sarah felt helpless. She was a judge who fought for justice, but today she couldn't even protect her little girl. Her mind flashed back to yesterday. The phone had rung while she was making dinner. It was Mrs. Deborah Klein, the HOA president. Her voice was sharp and cold. "Your daughter's wheelchair was cluttering the driveway," she said. "I sold it for $50. Rules are rules." Sarah had gripped the phone so tight her knuckles turned white. "That's Lily's life you sold," she wanted to scream, but Mrs. Klein hung up before she could say it. The woman's smug tone made Sarah's stomach twist. She pictured Mrs. Klein's fake smile, her perfect hair, someone who cared more about rules than people. Now Lily looked up at her mom, her voice shaky. "Why did she take it, Mommy?" Sarah didn't know what to say. She pulled Lily into her arms, feeling the weight of her daughter's pain. Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful, but inside, a storm was brewing. Sarah's hands shook, not just with sadness but with a quiet anger. Something had to change. Sarah's arms shook as she lifted Lily from the floor. Her daughter was light, but the effort made her feel weak today. She carried Lily to the couch, her steps slow and careful. Lily's legs hung limp, useless without her wheelchair. Sarah's heart ached with every move. She was so tired, tired of pretending, tired of hiding. At work, she was a federal judge, someone with power and respect. But here in this little neighborhood, she was just Lily's mom. She'd kept her real job a secret for years, wanting a quiet life for her daughter. "I didn't want power to define us," she thought. "Just love." Now though, that love felt like it wasn't enough. The HOA had sold Lily's wheelchair, and Sarah couldn't stop it. She laid Lily down on the couch and pulled a blanket over her. Lily's face was pale, her big eyes staring up at her mom. "Mom, why do they hate me?" she whispered. Her voice was so soft, so confused, it hit Sarah like a punch. She froze, her breath catching in her chest. How could she explain something so cruel to someone so innocent? She knelt beside Lily and touched her cheek. "They don't hate you, baby," she said, her voice trembling. "They're just mean." But the words felt hollow. Lily's question broke her heart, and Sarah couldn't fix the hurt in her daughter's eyes. On the floor by the couch, Lily's sketchbook lay open. Sarah picked it up and saw a drawing, a picture of Lily in her wheelchair flying through the sky. The wheels had wings, bright and bold, and Lily was smiling wide. It was how she saw herself before the HOA took everything away. That wheelchair wasn't just a tool, it was her freedom, her dreams. Now those dreams were gone, stolen by Mrs. Klein's cold rules. Sarah's chest tightened. She wanted to cry, to yell, to do something. But she just sat there, holding the sketchbook, feeling helpless. Then came a sharp knock at the door. Sarah's stomach twisted. She stood, took a deep breath, and opened it. Mrs. Deborah Klein stood there, her arms crossed, a smug look on her face. She held a piece of paper out. "You owe $100 for non-compliance," she said, her voice sharp. "That wheelchair broke the rules and you didn't fix it when I told you." She smirked, her eyes glinting. "Maybe you should have followed the rules." Sarah's hands curled into fists at her sides. Anger burned inside her, hot and fierce. She wanted to shout, to tell Mrs. Klein exactly what she thought of her stupid rules. Her judge side, the part of her that knew how to fight, was waking up, simmering under her calm face. But she didn't say a word. Not yet. She took the paper and muttered, "I'll deal with it." Mrs. Klein raised an eyebrow, turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement. Sarah shut the door and leaned against it. She looked at Lily, still on the couch, watching her with wide eyes. The fight was coming, she could feel it. She just didn't know how long she could hold it back. The house was dark and still, the only sound the soft hum of crickets outside. It was late, past midnight, and Sarah sat by Lily's bedside. Her daughter was finally asleep, her small chest rising and falling under a thin blanket. Sarah held Lily's hand, her thumb brushing over her daughter's tiny fingers. The room felt heavy, like the weight of everything was pressing down on her. She couldn't sleep, her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She looked at Lily's peaceful face and felt a lump rise in her throat. How had it come to this? On the nightstand something caught her eye, an old photo sticking out from under a book. She pulled it free and stared. It was Lily maybe 2 years ago, riding her wheelchair at the park. Her smile was so big, her eyes sparkling with joy. The sun shone behind her, and her hair flew wild in the breeze as she rolled down a little hill. That day Lily had laughed so hard she could barely speak. Sarah remembered pushing her, pretending the wheelchair was a race car. "Faster, Mommy, faster," Lily had shouted. Now that memory felt like a punch to the chest. Sarah's hands shook as she held the photo. Tears blurred her vision and she whispered, "I failed you." The words slipped out, quiet and broken. She'd promised to keep Lily safe, to give her a good life. But without her wheelchair, Lily was stuck, and Sarah couldn't fix it fast enough. Earlier that evening, a neighbor, Mrs. Patel, had stopped by with a casserole and some news that made Sarah's blood run cold. She'd leaned in close, her voice low. "I was at the HOA meeting last night," she said. Mrs. Klein stood up and bragged about selling Lily's wheelchair. She called her a burden on the neighborhood's image. Said it was better for everyone. Sarah's heart stopped. She thanked Mrs. Patel and closed the door, but inside she was shattering. Burden? For Lily? The girl who drew pictures for the neighbors, who waved at everyone from her wheelchair. Mrs. Klein hadn't just taken the wheelchair, she'd attacked Lily's worth, her existence. The betrayal burned deep, sharper than anything Sarah had felt before. She could almost hear Mrs. Klein's smug voice, see her smirking as she said it. Millions would feel the same rage she did, pure, boiling anger at a woman so cruel. Sarah set the photo down and buried her face in her hands. Tears spilled out hot and fast. She'd spent years hiding her life as a federal judge, moving to this neighborhood for a fresh start after her husband died. She'd wanted Lily to grow up normal, away from courtrooms and power. "I swore to keep this life separate," she thought. "No one here knows who I am, and that's how I wanted it." But now that choice felt like a cage. How could she protect Lily without fighting back? She could call lawyers, file complaints, but that would take time Lily didn't have. Every day without her wheelchair was a day her daughter suffered. Sarah's judge side screamed at her to act, to use her power to make Mrs. Klein pay. But her mom's side just wanted to hold Lily and cry. She looked at Lily again, so small in her bed. "I can't let her down," she whispered. The tears kept coming, but something else was growing inside her, resolve. She didn't know how yet, but she'd find a way. Mrs. Klein had gone too far, and Sarah wouldn't stay quiet much longer. 2 days had passed since Mrs. Klein knocked on Sarah's door, and now Sarah stood in a different world. She pulled on her black judge's robe, the fabric heavy but familiar. She was no longer just Lily's mom, she was a federal judge again. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and old paper. People shuffled in, their voices a low hum. Sarah took her place behind the bench, her face calm but her heart racing. Today's case was about an HOA dispute, and she knew who'd be there, Mrs. Deborah Klein. Sarah had waited for this moment, and it was time to stop hiding. The courtroom doors opened and Mrs. Klein walked in. She wore a tight smile, her clipboard tucked under her arm, ready to complain about another neighbor. She didn't even glance at Sarah at first, just sat down, whispering to someone beside her, looking smug as ever. Sarah adjusted her glasses and tapped her gavel. The room went quiet. "Court is now in session," she said, her voice clear and strong. Mrs. Klein looked up then, her eyes narrowing like she was trying to place Sarah's face. But she didn't get it, not yet. Sarah leaned forward, her hands steady on the bench. "Mrs. Klein," she said, pausing as every head turned. "You sold my daughter's wheelchair. A disabled child's lifeline, for $50. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Mrs. Klein's smug face froze, then cracked. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her eyes widened as she finally recognized Sarah, not the quiet mom from down the street, but the judge staring her down. People whispered, chairs creaked, and the air buzzed with shock. Sarah didn't flinch. She'd dreamed of this moment, and now it was real. She kept going, her voice like steel. "You broke the law, Mrs. Klein. The Americans with Disabilities Act protects people like my Lily. You harassed us, caused emotional distress, and took away her only way to move, all because you didn't like how it looked. Sarah pulled out papers, evidence she'd gathered, the HOA notice, a photo of Lily's empty spot in the garage, even a neighbor's statement about Mrs. Klein's cruel words. You thought you had power, she said, locking eyes with her. You forgot what justice looks like. The room was silent now, everyone hanging on her words. Mrs. Klein's face turned red, then pale. She stammered, I didn't know. I mean, it was just rules. Her voice was weak, crumbling under the weight of Sarah's stare. Sarah held up a hand to stop her. You didn't know who I was, she said. That's your mistake. But you knew what you did to a little girl, and that's worse. The courtroom felt electric. People leaned forward, some nodding, others glaring at Mrs. Klein. She shrank in her seat, her clipboard slipping to the floor. Sarah sat back, her heart pounding but her face calm. The truth was out, and Mrs. Klein couldn't hide any more. Justice was coming, and Sarah was the one bringing it. The courtroom was tense, everyone waiting for Sarah's next words. She sat tall behind the bench, her black robe making her look unstoppable. Mrs. Klein fidgeted in her seat, her smugness gone, replaced by a nervous twitch. Sarah cleared her throat and spoke, her voice firm. The HOA will pay a fine of $50,000, she said. That money will go to disability accommodations, ramps, better sidewalks, for this neighborhood. Gasps filled the room, then murmurs of approval. And Mrs. Klein, Sarah added, her eyes sharp, you will personally apologize to my daughter Lily for what you did. The gavel came down with a loud bang. The courtroom exploded in applause, people clapped, some cheered, and a few stood up. Sarah stayed calm, but inside she felt a rush of victory. Justice wasn't just a word anymore, it was real. Later that day, Sarah drove home with a surprise in the trunk. She pulled into the driveway, her hands still shaky from the courtroom. Lily was inside, sitting on the couch where Sarah had left her. Close your eyes, Sarah called out, her voice soft but excited. She opened the trunk and wheeled out a new wheelchair, custom-made, painted with Lily's favorite flowers, daisies and sunflowers, bright yellow and white. She pushed it into the living room and said, "Okay, open them." Lily's eyes widened and a small, hesitant smile crept onto her face. She reached out, touching the armrest like she couldn't believe it. "It's mine?" she whispered. Sarah nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "All yours, baby." Lily climbed in, slow at first, then spun the wheels a little. Her smile grew, tentative but real. "Mom, am I safe now?" she asked, her voice so quiet it almost broke Sarah. "Yes," Sarah said, kneeling beside her. "You're safe now." A tear rolled down her cheek, but she smiled through it. That evening the doorbell rang. Sarah opened it to find Mrs. Klein standing there, her head low, her fancy clipboard nowhere in sight. She looked smaller, humiliated. "I'm here to apologize," she muttered, barely meeting Sarah's eyes. Sarah stepped aside and Lily rolled forward in her new wheelchair. Mrs. Klein shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry, Lily," she said, her voice flat. "I shouldn't have sold your wheelchair. It wasn't much, but it was something." Lily looked up at her, her face serious beyond her years. "I forgive you," she said softly. Then she added, "But don't hurt anyone else, okay?" Her words were simple, wise, and strong. Mrs. Klein blinked, caught off guard, then nodded quickly and turned away, her steps fast as she left. Sarah closed the door, her chest tight with pride and relief. The moment lingered, Lily's forgiveness, Mrs. Klein's shame, the new wheelchair shining in the light. Sarah sat beside her daughter, watching her roll back and forth, a little spark of joy returning. The fight was over and they'd won. Outside, the neighborhood felt different already, quieter, kinder. Sarah knew millions would feel this, the sweet taste of justice, the power of a child's heart, and a mother's love that wouldn't break. A week had passed since the courtroom showdown, and the air felt lighter. Sarah and Lily sat together on their front porch, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. Lily's new wheelchair with its bright flowers rested beside her. She held a juice box, sipping slowly, her eyes following the kids playing across the street. They ran and shouted, their laughter bouncing off the houses. Sarah leaned back in her chair, a small smile on her lips. The neighborhood didn't feel the same anymore, it was different, better. People waved as they passed by, some even stopping to say hello. Sarah's stand against the HOA had spread like wildfire, and it showed. Down the block, workers hammered and drilled, building a new ramp near the park. The $50,000 fine Sarah had ordered was already at work, making the streets easier for everyone, not just Lily. A neighbor, Mr. Thompson, walked by with his dog and nodded at Sarah. "You did good," he called out. About time someone stood up to her. Sarah waved back, her chest warm with quiet pride. Mrs. Klein hadn't been seen much since that day. Rumor was she'd stepped down from the HOA, too embarrassed to show her face. The bully was gone and the neighborhood was healing. Sarah glanced at Lily, who was watching a little girl ride a bike. Lily's face was soft, her smile real again, not the forced one she'd worn after losing her wheelchair. Sarah reached over and squeezed her hand. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked. Lily nodded. "Yeah, Mom. It's nice out here." Her voice was light, like a weight had lifted. Sarah's eyes stung with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She'd fought for this moment, for Lily to feel safe, to feel free again. In her mind, Sarah heard her own voice, steady and sure. "I'm a judge, but I'm a mother first," she thought. "For Lily I'd fight the world." Turns out, I didn't have to, just one bully. That truth settled deep inside her, warm and strong. She'd hidden her power for so long, but when it mattered she'd used it, not for herself but for her daughter. And now look at them, sitting together watching life go on, unbroken. Lily giggled suddenly, pointing at a boy who'd tripped over a ball and landed in the grass. Her laugh was small but bright, the sound Sarah had missed for too long. It filled the air, free and alive again. Sarah's heart swelled, she'd given that back to her. The scene felt perfect, like the end of a storm. The neighborhood kids kept playing, the ramp kept rising, and the world kept turning a little kinder than before. If this were a video, the screen would fade to black and words would appear. She thought she could break them. She didn't know who she was messing with. Soft music would swell, something emotional with strings and a slow beat, lifting the moment higher. Views would climb, millions sharing the story of a mom who fought, a girl who forgave and a bully who fell. On the porch, Sarah and Lily stayed together, victorious.